Before operations management, planning and technique, we are right here, and this is the next module, projection and forecasting techniques part 2. What exactly are we covering in this module? Cost volume profit analysis, CVP analysis, absorption versus contribution approach, break-even analysis, and finally the target costing. Let us do the first sub part of this module, cost volume profit analysis. What is CVP analysis? Cost volume profit analysis. CVP analysis basically is a technique used by managers to forecast profits at different levels of sales, different levels of production volumes. Like if we produce 10,000 units at this level of production, what will be our cost and profit? If we change our production level to 15,000, at this level, what would be our cost and our profit? So CVP analysis is an interplay between the volume of production, its corresponding cost, and the profit at that level of cost. Of course, it involves sales price as well. So it will also help us identify the point where there is no profit, no loss, also called the break-even point. We'll discuss this in a subsequent part in the same module. There are certain assumptions in CVP analysis. Of course, they are the limitations. You might challenge each and every assumption that I'm going to discuss, but nonetheless, we have to make these assumptions to make this model work. The first assumption, you may challenge it, that the costs are either fixed or variable, and we know that not all costs are fixed. Not all costs are variable. Some are partly variable, partly fixed. Some are stepped costs. Costs do not follow a straight line function. Second, volume. The second assumption is that volume is the only relevant factor that affects your profits, that affects your cost, and that affects your sales. There are other things also, but let us just believe these for the time being. Volume is the only factor that affects the cost and the revenues. Cost behavior. Cost behavior is assumed to be linear. Your variable cost per unit is assumed to be constant in the short run. Your total fixed cost is assumed to be constant in the short run. Quantity is on the x-axis and your cost on the y-axis. And your total cost, which is the sum of your variable cost and fixed cost. And this would be the representation of your total variable cost. You can see your variable cost on per unit basis stays the same. That's why it's a horizontal line. Your total fixed cost in the relevant range stays the same. Your total variable cost changes proportionally. Total variable cost, it changes proportionally with the level of output, whereas this one should be the total cost. This represents total cost because this part is the fixed cost and this remaining part represents the variable cost, right? So the cost behavior is assumed to be linear. You may argue, but let's not. Single product versus multiple product. This is an important assumption here. The company either sells a single product, or if it sells multiple products, the product mix A, B, C. If we sell 10 units of A, or in other words, let's say if A accounts for 10% of your volume, B accounts for 70% of your volume, then C must be 20%. So it means this sales mix stays the same. So either you sell a single product or you sell multiple products, but the mix remains constant. That is one of the assumptions. Then selling prices are assumed to be constant, and these were the few assumptions that we had in CVP analysis. Let's move on to the next. Absorption versus contribution approach. Okay, now here we go. This is quite a simple explanation of the concept. The equation for the absorption approach is as follows. We have our revenues, and from this we deduct our cost of goods sold, which is made up of four things: direct material, direct labor, variable overheads, and fixed overheads. When you deduct these, you get the gross margin, and from this you deduct your operating expenses, which of course are variable selling and admin and fixed selling and admin, and that you get your net income. This approach is acceptable under the US GAAP, under the International Financial Reporting Standard, as well as the Internal Revenue Services codes require you to prepare your income statement based on absorption approach. We have an alternative approach which is not acceptable by any of these, is what you call the contribution margin approach. In this, what we do, we take our revenue, which are the same, and then we deduct our variable costs When you say variable costs, they involve direct material, direct labor, variable overheads, variable selling, variable administration. So deducting all the variable costs, I emphasize the word on all, is all variable costs, from your revenue gives you what you call the contribution margin, and then we deduct all the fixed costs in one go, which are fixed manufacturing costs called fixed overheads, fixed selling, fixed administration. It will give you net income under the contribution margin approach, and they are not the same. They are not the same. Sometimes you might get a situation like this where this income is more than this, sometimes less, and very rarely equal, and we will see under what circumstances they are equal. So this is important, you need to remember, and here is the pass key. Variable costs include direct labor, direct material, variable manufacturing, shipping, packaging, selling, admin, and the fixed costs involve the fixed manufacturing, fixed selling, fixed administration, and general. We know that. Now moving on, next we have a very important concept called the unit contribution margin. Let me take you back. Here we have the contribution margin for all our revenue and all our variable cost. If you take our unit selling price, direct material for single unit, labor for single unit, variable overheads, variable selling, variable admin, in other words, variable unit cost, what you get is called the unit contribution margin or per unit basis. Or in other words, if you divide your contribution margin, total contribution margin, with the number of units sold, this will give you the unit contribution margin. So unit contribution margin is the unit selling price minus all the unit variable cost that we have just discussed. But when you say the contribution margin ratio is equal to the unit contribution margin divided by the unit selling price. Contribution margin expressed as a percentage of revenue. You can calculate it on per unit basis, or you can also calculate on the total basis. The result would be the same, contribution margin divided by the revenue. So UCM upon USP, or the total contribution divided by the total revenue, you will get the same result. See, contribution margin upon revenue, I just told you this one. So basically, what is the prime difference between absorption costing and variable costing? I will show you. This is the main difference. Let me highlight this for you. Fixed manufacturing cost is considered as a product cost under absorption costing, whereas fixed manufacturing overhead, it is considered as a period cost under the variable or direct costing, right? So this is the difference. Rest is the same, so we don't even need to look at the table anymore. The difference between these two approaches is the treatment of fixed factory overhead. Now this is an important part here. The general income statement formats for both methods are presented here. If you use our conventional absorption based income statement, that is sales, cost of sales, you get your gross margin, and from this you deduct your all the variable selling and admin. Fixed selling admin, you get your operating income under the US GAAP, IFRS, or the financial statement prepared for IRS submission. But if you use the contribution margin approach, also called the variable or direct costing, you take sales minus all the variable costs, whether they are related to production or related to selling and admin. That gives you the contribution margin. And from this, then we deduct all the fixed costs, production related fixed costs, non-production related fixed costs gives us the operating income, and they are not necessarily the same. We'll discuss. One important difference, very unlikely you might be tested. We are tested on CMA but not in CPA. You might be required to calculate the manufacturing contribution margin. Mind the word, manufacturer's contribution margin. In that case, you take just sales and the variable costs, direct material, direct labor, and variable overheads only. If you deduct these three from sales revenue, what you get is called the manufacturing contribution margin. Normally, in almost all cases, you take sales minus all the variable costs, and that's the contribution margin you are most likely to be interested in. Okay, now here we have three situations. When the sales and production are same, let's say you produce 10,000 units and all of them have been sold, then the variable costing based income statement and the absorption costing based income statement, they will be the same. The problem will arise when the production and sales are not equal. When the production is more than sales, like you produced 10,000 units, but you only ended up selling 8,000 units, means these 2,000 units which we couldn't sell, these 2,000 units contain with them or carry with them a part of fixed cost. which does not get expensed under the absorption costing. That is why absorption costing income would be higher than the variable costing income if the production is more than sales. And reason I told you, because in the absorption costing, fixed cost is the part of production. So these 2000 units, they will carry away a certain portion of fixed cost and hide it in the finished goods inventory. Resultantly, or not all the fixed cost gets expensed, so absorption costing income statement will be higher than the variable costing based income statement, right? And when the sale is more than production, like you sold 12,000 units but you produce only 10,000 units, how can you do that? Of course, these 2,000 units which were in the opening stock, they have been sold, and they had some fixed costs in them which eventually gets expensed under absorption costing. Hence, absorption costing based income would be less and the variable costing income would be higher. Remember, whenever production is more than sales, absorption costing profit would be higher than variable costing. And whenever the sales is more than production, in that case, variable costing income would be higher than absorption costing. And reason I just told you is that these 2,000 units which sold in the current period, they had fixed cost in them, and that fixed cost now gets expensed in CGS. Resultantly, absorption costing income would be lower, variable costing income would be higher. Now remember, whether you are taking production versus sales or closing stock versus opening stock, let me write this down so you will be able to make sense out of it. Whenever the production is greater than sales, or conversely speaking, closing stock is greater than opening stock, this will always be the case when you produce more than you can sell. Your closing stock will swell, will become more than the opening stock. So you will have the same situation shown here. Or in other words, when the opening stock is more than the closing stock, means something from the opening stock was sold, so closing stock has shrunk. So in that case, you will have variable costing income higher than. So either you take this arrangement or this, you end up with the same result. So finally, now we have some advantages and disadvantages of absorption system. As I told you, absorption costing is required under the US GAAP, IFRS as well as the IRS filing. There are certain disadvantages as well, because in absorption costing, when you produce more, production is more than sales, your profit artificially is inflated. So this could be used as manipulation by those managers whose performance is evaluated based upon the absorption costing based income statement. So this could be the drawback. What about the variable costing or direct costing advantages? The advantage of variable costing is that it splits the variable and fixed component of the cost. Numbers are more reliable because in absorption costing, interesting thing is when your sale increases, sometimes your profits fall. Like in this case, when you have more sales than production, your absorption costing income is less because the fixed cost that was part of the opening stock is now getting expensed. So even having higher sales, profits might be lower. This could be sometimes very confusing. But in variable costing, whenever sale goes up, profit goes up. Whenever sales fall, profit falls. So there is a very clear-cut, observable relationship between sales and profit in variable costing, but things could be little erratic in the absorption costing. And of course, variable costing involves a split of variable and fixed cost, and this will be very helpful for the management in decision making, because decision making involves those costs that are under control. Variable costs are more controllable, hence variable costing is more suitable in decision making. And problem is that variable costing is not allowed under IFRS, US GAAP as well as the IRS filing. Next subunit we have is the break-even analysis. What is break-even analysis? It's the level of sales we need, the sales in dollars or the sales in units. The level of sales in dollars or in units that we need to achieve in order to achieve zero profit, or a point where your total revenue is equal to your total cost. Okay, now we have an extended example and we will solve each component of this as we go on doing some formulas. Let us move to the next slide and see what we need to learn here. Break-even point in units. This is the formula we use to calculate the break-even point in units. The total fixed cost which you need to cover divided by the contribution margin generated by each unit to cover the fixed cost. Very important formula. Break-even point in units is the total fixed cost upon the contribution margin per unit. Now look at this question. The following information is applicable to green grass industries and will be used for all the examples in the next several sections. We need to calculate green grass break-even point in units. So for that we need to first know what is the fixed cost, and I think it should be given right here somewhere. Fixed cost is 150 and we need the unit contribution margin per unit, that is selling price 125, variable cost 50, 125, 50 is 75. So dividing your fixed cost of $150,000 with the unit contribution margin of 75 should give you the break-even quantity in units. So that's going to be exactly 2000 units. You need to sell 2000 units so as to achieve break-even, where your total revenue will be equal to total cost. Next point here is a break-even point in dollars. That is the break-even sales revenue. There are two ways we can do it. The first one is to simply multiply your break-even quantity we have just found out in the previous part and multiply this with the unit price. Unit selling price was I think it was 150. 125. Unit selling price was 125. So either you multiply the break-even point in units with the unit selling price, gives you $250,000, which is the break-even sales revenue. This is the first approach to find the break-even sales dollar. Or second one is to take your total fixed cost and divide it with the contribution margin ratio. We know the total fixed cost is 150 and contribution margin ratio, there's a formula for that. We discussed that previously. Contribution margin ratio is equal to unit contribution margin upon unit selling price, or you may take your total contribution margin upon the total revenue, whichever you have it. So we have our unit contribution margin to be 75 and our unit selling price to be 125. So 75 unit contribution margin is what percentage of selling price? That is 60%. So 150,000 divided by 60% gives you the exact answer as shown above in the above formula. So break-even point in dollars could be calculated using this formula or this one, your choice. So break-even point in dollars, calculate green grass break-even point in dollars using break-even units, and for this you will do the first one, break-even point in units multiplied by the unit price, you get break-even point in dollars, right? This was the first one where you need to calculate using the break-even units, and the second one, calculate green grass break-even point in dollars using the contribution margin ratio. That would be the second one. Break-even point in dollars, total fixed cost upon the contribution margin ratio, and I just showed you how to do it. So that was the second point in the break-even analysis. Third one, required sales volume for target profit. When we need to attain a certain pre-tax profit, also we need to cover the fixed cost. The formula will be a little different this time. So you will write, I have to cover not only the fixed cost, but I also need to earn a certain pre-tax profit, and you divide it with the unit contribution margin. So it's just that in the previous formula, fixed cost upon unit contribution margin, now we have this additional item in the numerator because we need to earn some profit also. So we won't call it break-even quantity, you will call it the sales in units we need to make in order to cover not only the fixed cost but also earn a pre-tax profit. So here we go. Calculate green grass unit sales needed to in order to achieve its desired pre-tax profit of 60. So you need to earn pre-tax profit. You also need to cover your fixed cost, and all of these will be done by each unit contributing $75. So what we have in the numerator, 60,000 plus 150,000 divided by 75. So it's going to be 2,800 units. So if you sell these many units, you will not only cover your fixed cost, but you will also make a profit before tax, operating profit or the pre-tax profit of 60,000. Now I would like to make a little amendment in this formula. Let's say if you want to earn an after-tax profit, a certain after-tax profit, this formula will be revised a little. You will have fixed cost, you will have the net income, also called the after-tax profit, divided by 1 minus tax rate, divided by the unit contribution margin, right? So fixed cost plus net income upon 1 minus tax. This element is basically your pre-tax profit. This is the same as pre-tax profit. Net income upon 1 minus tax is pre-tax profit. It's just that sometimes we are given net income to earn, and you simply plug in the numbers this way, divided by the UCM, you will get your sales in quantity. Right? Now, sometimes you do not have a unit contribution margin and you are required to calculate sales in dollars. So in that case, instead of contribution margin per unit in the numerator, you have the same. In the denominator, you will have CMR. Right? Fixed cost plus pre-tax profit upon CMR. Same for this formula I wrote down a little while ago. Fixed cost plus net income upon 1 minus tax divided by CMR. This will give you the sales revenue you need to cover the fixed cost as well as to earn the net income, or in this case, pre-tax profit. So remember, when the denominator contains CMR, the result is in the dollars, and when you have the units in the denominator, you get the results in units. Now the next part is interesting. Predicting profits based upon the volume. It says calculate Greengrass profit if the company sells 2,500 units. Each unit generating a contribution of 75. So 2,500 units sold will generate a contribution of 187,500. And from this, if we deduct your fixed cost of 150, that's simple. You get your pre-tax profit, that is 37,500, right? And if you are required to calculate after tax, so you can apply this tax rate and get your answer. Simple. Okay, now let me apply the desired after tax profit of 36. So just apply this formula. You need sales quantity, for example, fixed cost plus the desired after tax profit of 36,000 divided by 1 minus tax rate upon the unit contribution margin, that is 75. So if you solve this, you will get the quantity that you need to sell in order to earn an after tax profit of 36,000. So, or otherwise, in place of this, sometimes you might be required to calculate the quantity to earn a pre-tax profit, and in that case, you simply plug in the pre-tax number here. No tax grossing up, just solve it and get your answer. The fifth application of break-even analysis is setting up selling price based on assumed volume. Like calculate Greengrass price per unit sales price needed to produce its desired pre-tax profit of 60,000 given the market saturation level of 3,000 units. So the formula you will use is the fixed cost that you need to cover is 150. Variable cost is 50. Multiply by how many units we are talking about? 3,000. So 50 multiplied by 3,000. That will give you the total fixed and variable cost. And we also need to generate a profit, pre-tax profit of 60,000. Add this up. All these inputted. Now divide the numerator with the number of units to be sold, 3,000. And if you do, you will get $120. This is the selling price that will not only cover your fixed costs and variable costs, will also generate a pre-tax operating profit of 60, right? So this is also good usable formula. What is margin of safety? Margin of safety is the excess of sales over the break-even sales. Like for example, we know we will be able to break even when we sell 10,000 units, but we have planned to sell 12,000 units. So the gap between your planned sales and the break-even sales, this is called the break-even. It's called the margin of safety in units. You can also calculate it on a dollars basis. Let's say we know we will be able to break even if we achieve a sales revenue target of 150, but our planned sales is, let's say, $200,000. So the gap between your break-even sales revenue and the planned or budgeted sales revenue, this difference is called the margin of safety. So it could be found out in the units form or in the dollar-based form. These are the formulas you will use. Margin of safety in dollars is the total sales in dollars minus the break-even in dollars, or you can also calculate it in units. Margin of safety in units is equal to total sales quantity minus the break-even sales quantity. It can also be expressed as percentage. That what you found out above, margin of safety divided by the total sales. So it could either be in quantity up, quantity down, you'll get the same percentage, or it could be the revenue up, the margin of safety in dollars, and the total sales revenue in dollars. So again, the percentage would be the same. Whether you use quantity or the dollar-based inputs, the percentage would be the same. The formulas are pretty straightforward. Next, we have break-even charts. Yes, let me explain. We have some lines here with their appropriate legends. Fixed cost is the cost that stays fixed in the relevant range, and it is horizontal, parallel to x-axis, mean it's the same, 150 fixed. The previous example, this is in continuation to the previous example. Let me show you. This is your fixed cost, this is your selling price per unit, this is your variable cost per unit, and this has now been plotted in a chart form. Your fixed cost is 150. Your revenue line is steeper because you sell item at $125 per unit, but your variable cost is $50 per unit. So that's why it's relatively flatter. Now, this is the total revenue. This is the total cost because it contains the fixed part shown here and the variable part, the steepiness. This point that you see right here is what you call the break-even point. Above this point, we have more revenue than the cost, so this region is profit. And below this point, you can see the cost line is above, total cost is more than total revenue. This region is the region of loss. This is what you call the break-even chart. The pure graph of fixed cost where we showed you the fixed cost here, but this one is called the profit volume chart. We have the volume on x-axis and profit on the y-axis. That's why it's called profit volume chart. So what you see here, if you sell 2000 units, there is no profit. Anything above 2000 units will earn you profit, and anything less than 2000 will start incurring you losses. So this is the region of losses. As you can see, the negative number, and above you have profits. The last topic we have is the interesting topic called the target costing. Now, what is target costing? Target costing, let's say I want to sell a product and I want to sell it at a target selling price of $150. That's my target selling price established by market research or whatever. I want to make a profit of 30% of the target selling price. So that's what we call the target profit. 30% of my target selling price, that would mean 45, right? If I want to sell the item at 150 and my desired profit is 45, then I must ensure that I make it at 105. That is the target cost. So target cost is a technique we use to establish the product cost to ensure both profitability and a certain sales volume and sales revenue. Now, achieving this cost could sometimes be very challenging. So what if your current cost as predicted by your management accountant is 130? The cost you want is 105, so there is a massive gap of $25. How we bring this gap down? This cost gap needs reduction. So this could mean sometimes that the management might compromise on quality, use cheaper inputs. Cheaper inputs will lower the cost from 130 to 105, so you will be able to achieve your target cost, but it may lower your sale in the future because product of low quality will not result in sustained sales in the future. Complex cost management. In order to achieve this targeted cost level, you need to increase your efficiency. You need to attain a higher level of productivity. That could be a challenge for the management accountant. And maybe in some cases, you may have to redesign your product so that the cost could be reduced throughout the life cycle of the product. And all these are quite a major challenges for management accountants and for the management as well. So how do we establish target cost? The market price less the desired profit. And this is what you need to achieve as the cost target.